Hello. This video is for all heads of state of all nations and their close, influential and caring friends and families. As you no doubt know, it is essential to reduce the world's production of virgin plastic. The scientific evidence is overwhelming. The amount of plastic already being produced could already be lethal to humans. No one today can guarantee otherwise, and yet we continue to produce more plastic every day. For several decades now, global plastic production has been accelerating, as has the quantity of plastic waste. And the future will be worse if we don't become reasonable. Most of this waste is poorly managed, and its toxicity is totally out of control. It is therefore up to you, the leaders of all nations, to take radical measures to prevent future generations from suffering irreparable damage. You must carry out a risk analysis to avoid the worst. Any inaction on your part is potentially suicidal. Unfortunately, no one can objectively tell you what to do. Nobody can tell you how to reduce global plastic production to ensure the continuity of life on Earth. Nobody knows. There are proposals such as this OECD report. There are even proposals from Rwanda and Peru presented at the last UN negotiating session for a global treaty. The aim of this proposal is to reduce global production of virgin plastics by almost half over the next 15 years. That's all well and good, but the reality is that no one can claim that these proposals will prevent irreparable damage. Nobody. In a case like this, there is only one solution. We must take the most radical measures possible. It's the only way we stand a chance of winning this battle against growing, pervasive, insidious and toxic pollution that affects all living organisms. So here in 10 major steps is what every benevolent head of state, at least towards himself, must do. All future generations on Earth will thank you for it. These steps can be taken together, and each of them will enable you to gather the data needed for the most important part of this process. Risk analysis. It's about assessing what could happen, how likely it is, and how to manage it effectively. First step. This is the most important stage because knowledge can already change people for the better. You will prepare the public for the efforts they will have to make to ensure that each of these stages runs smoothly. To do this, you will publicize and teach people about the invisible dangers of plastic pollution. The individual efforts required will be unanimously and calmly accepted. Raising public awareness is one of the keys to your victory against pollution. It is perhaps even the most important because nothing and no one must stand in the way of your actions. Second step. Global plastic production must be temporarily halted. It will not be restarted until humanity has mastered how to neutralize the toxicity of all plastic objects and waste. This first ultra-radical action is the price we have to pay today to avoid the worst tomorrow. All the citizens of the world will show their solidarity with the workers affected by this stoppage, and there will be no question of negotiating a list of essential plastics whose production will continue. Faced with the extinction of life on Earth, no plastic is essential. We can discuss this again if you have any doubts. Third step. The use of plastics in circulation must be temporarily regulated. A ban will apply firmly to the use of all non-essential plastics that are most likely to fragment into microplastics and then nanoplastics. Stopping the use of plastic will be a priority in the industrial sector, which is a major source of plastic waste. The profits made year after year by industrialists and shareholders, to the detriment of the environment and human health, will be taxed in line with the damage caused. The requisition of these ecocidal profits will partly fund the repairs. Once again, citizens around the world will demonstrate their solidarity with the workers affected by these necessary measures. The shredding of plastics at pseudo-recycling sites will be stopped. The use of essential plastics still in circulation will be regulated to avoid depleting stocks too quickly. Fourth step. You will estimate the stock of microplastics and nanoplastics that are already irreversibly contaminating all the terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems in your country, in all biotopes, air, soil, fresh water, oceans, and in living organisms, plants and animals, including humans. You are going to deploy a contamination monitoring network. Initial monitoring will be on a large scale to provide an initial overview. These measurements will then be repeated to quantify the rate at which contamination is worsening. The frequency of measurements will be discussed with the specialists. Fifth step. You will quantify and locate existing plastics. The global stock is in the order of several billion tons, and, roughly speaking, 1 ton will eventually produce billions of microplastics. And each microplastic will produce several thousand nanoplastics. This is the famous bomb I'm talking about in another video. And this bomb is made up of new objects just produced or from recycling, objects in use, and waste stored somewhere or lost in nature. You're going to have to neutralise the toxicity of this stock, so it's essential to know what it is. Sixth step. You will estimate the future evolution of the contamination of our vital resources and living organisms, including humans. This contamination is the result of existing and uncontrolled particles. Added to this every day are the particles resulting from the fragmentation of the global stock of plastic assessed in the previous step. You will estimate the fragmentation rates for each type of plastic and use. Seventh step. Using toxicological studies, you will estimate the lethal contamination thresholds for humans. This must be done first and foremost for each of our organs, for the air we breathe and the water we drink, and for each animal or plant species on which we depend for food. These lethal thresholds will serve as a benchmark for avoiding the worst. We will then know whether humans, animals, and even plants are not already doomed by the stock of plastic already produced. Eighth step. You will neutralise the toxicity of existing plastics once and for all. New objects, objects in use, waste managed or lost in nature, but also microplastics and nanoplastics. Neutralising them will ensure that lethal levels for humans are not exceeded, but also the survival of the living organisms on which we depend. You'll be drawing direct inspiration from the methods used to manage hazardous waste, such as radioactive waste. Until this neutralisation is perfectly mastered, the production of virgin plastic will remain at a standstill. The opposite could be suicidal. What's more, recycling, downcycling, and the circular economy in no way neutralise the toxicity of plastics. Be realistic and don't be blinded by the rhetoric of industry. Neutralisation is an essential step because without it, all the efforts made to date will be in vain. 9th step. You will be working with religious and spiritual leaders. These caring personalities will help members of their community to overcome the human difficulties associated with certain stages. Last step. Finally, you will do everything necessary to ensure that the global treaty is the legally binding international instrument that will integrate all these actions and guarantee their success. The negotiations should be completed by the end of the year in Busan, Republic of Korea. You will be actively involved in these negotiations. That's all there is to it. I hope I haven't forgotten anything. Once you've successfully completed these steps, you'll finally have a handle on plastics and their toxicity. You'll be able to decide how to use them without risking the extinction of life on Earth. Thank you for listening to the end. That was Dr. Pi. I am at your disposal on the social networks for any further information. Future generations are counting on you, but time is running out to avoid the irreparable with certainty. Stay clear-headed and subscribe. Thank you very much.